So the very first assignment that you're going to have for creative writing is going to be a memoir. Okay. So just to kind of walk you through what I want you to do here is the first thing is we need to familiarize ourselves with what a memoir is. So we'll be doing that through the use of this slideshow, which I'm going to walk you through. Okay. So a memoir is it's a personal narrative story, right? So it's going to be a story about you, a story about your life, okay? And you're going to tell it in the first person perspective. So you're going to use I, me, my, those types of pronouns, right? So I went to the store and bought pizza and I like pizza, right? So that's going to be the kind of voice that the story is going to be told in. And it's going to be a personal story in which you and people that you know will be characters. Okay. Um, so the memoir comes from the French word for memory, and it's similar to an autobiography, but it's much more narrow in focus. So for an autobiography, hey guys, sorry about that. So I had a visitor. So anyway, back to the memoir. It is similar to the autobiography, but it's much more narrow in scope. So or an autobiography would start at the very beginning of your life. It'd be like, I was born in a manger outside of Berkeley Springs, and I was raised by wolves. Right? Like you're not gonna start at the very beginning of your life. Okay, you're gonna start in the middle of the action. Right? So let's say you have like a particular really funny or harrowing story that when you're at Thanksgiving, everybody tells about you. Okay, so you're gonna write that story. Okay, you're not gonna start with your birth and go up through elementary school, but you're gonna write that story, whatever that like special story is. And if you don't know what story to write, a good tip is to ask other people to tell you a story about yourself. Okay. Um, Another option is to think about what those, like, we all have our family mythologies, right? Like our stories about granddad and our stories about mom and our stories about dad and all of the, like, we all have our family mythologies that give us our identity, right, as part of our family. So um, you could tell one of those, right? So just spend some time and thought thinking about what are the stories that you tell each other spoken, and then we're going to write them down, and that's going to be your memoir. Okay. All right. So again, memoirs, I, me, my, they are based on truth. They are not true, and that's an important distinction to make, right? Because sometimes the true stories have boring parts in them, and we don't want the boring parts. We want to cut those boring parts out. So we don't want to lie, right? We don't want to outright lie and fictionalize parts of the story. But let's say the real story has brother Jimmy, mom, and grandma in it. And let's say that grandma is kind of like boring in the story, right? Sorry, grandma. But let's say that grandma's kind of boring in the story. Well, maybe we cut grandma out and we just tell the story about mom and brother Jimmy. Okay. So is it strictly true in that grandma is not there? No. But is it based on truth? Yes. Right. So we we don't what I don't want you to do is to be a slave to the truth at the expense of telling a really good story, right? We want to tell a good story first. And if that means we got to bend the truth a teeny tiny little bit, then that's okay. All right. And we want the story to be super focused and tiny, and we want it to be kind of like to have some kind of moral lesson, right? So when we tell, my phone is ringing again. Okay, hold on. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry for the interruption. So again, and finally, the memoir is more about the author's experience than the author, right? So it's another subtle difference between a memoir and a biography, right? The biography is about the 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 person that the biography is about, right? But with the memoir, everything comes back to the story, right? So the people, the events, the things that happen in the memoir all serve the story. Okay, so if it doesn't make for a good story, it doesn't belong in your memoir. Okay, memoirs tend to be good or bad before they are even begun, right? And the difference is good memoirs start with a good topic and a good frame of reference, right? So you want to pick something that you think your audience will care about. You want to pick something that is important to you because you'll write more enthusiastically about something that is important to you. You want to write something you know about, right? Because then you can describe it in great detail. And you want to pick something that's a reasonable length, okay? You don't want to tell a story about the 4-year period in your life where you worked at Food Line, okay? You want to choose a very particular event that's very narrow in scope, okay? And you want to stick with that. And so we're done with this for now. The rest of the stuff that I'm asking you to do here in the pre-writing for this memoir. So you have access to that slideshow. The first thing is there's a brainstorming sheet here. And you're going to start with that. And it's just got some questions that it's going to lead you through that you need to answer in complete sentences and turn in. I'm going to give you a couple of points for that. Okay. And you and I are going to have a discussion about what your memoir is going to be. Okay. So we're going to have some brainstorming going on. We're going to try to come up with some ideas for what you might want to write about. And it's just basic questions there. And then we're going to get a little bit more detailed with this planning assignment here. You're going to turn that in for points. And normally we're not going to do this much pre-writing, but with the memoir, they're good or bad before they even get started, right? Based on what you pick. Okay, so this is the memoir planning document. It's self-explanatory. But I expect each of these things to be answered in complete sentences. So your intended audience, you might be writing this for your own family, or you might be writing it for yourself. But I should definitely be considered in your audience because I'm going to be the one reading it and grading it. Questions here about organization. How are you going to start it? How are you going to end it? Okay. Just make sure that you read these directions and follow them carefully, and you'll be fine. And then after you have turned in those 2 documents, and I have looked at them, you're going to go down here to where it says narrative memoir, and that is the document that you're going to use to start typing your story. Okay, guys. So these are due, I think. Yep, these are due September the 25th. And that is in their rough draft form. So I'll be reading all of them and editing them for you and giving them back to be fixed. And then we will start putting them up on the website. Okay. And that's going to be our first writing assignment. And I can't wait to read them. So very excited to have you on, class. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.